Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Embracing Wisdom with Stacie. That's me. And I'm so excited for this topic. This is something that I have been teaching in my yoga business, my yoga students for at least 5 years. So every September, it rolls around, and I'm so excited to dive into this super important topic, whether you practice yoga or not. This is about a deep understanding of who we are and how then do we live what we are. So this all sort of came about when I started to realize that as we head into the final quarter of the year, there can be a lot going on. There's a lot of demands put on us. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of disappointments, a lot of being pulled from places, maybe feeling like I don't have the finances for this holiday stuff, or seeing somebody else having the classic Norman Rockwell holidays when in your life it's sort of disjointed. There's just so much. And it feels kind of stormy for a lot of us. It feels very unsettling. And so I started to think about what sustains a home when it's stormy outside, or what keeps the tree from toppling over when it's windy and stormy. And so these two things sort of interwoven. And I realized, like, with, there's wonderful places within a home. There's the kitchen. I love to be there. There's where people gather. Those are all very important parts of a home. But what keeps that home solid, the structure itself, is the foundation. And most homes have four main solid foundational walls, that which everything else is built upon. Stay with me. This is so good. A tree, in its beautifulness, the bark, the leaves, the branches, the flowers, the fruit, the pine needles, the pine cones, although they're not my favorite. It's all this outer beauty that we see. But what keeps that tree from falling over when it's stormy is the roots of the tree. And so I started to think about us as people, myself. What is it that keeps me steady when life gets stormy? What are some things that I put into place every single day that keep me from toppling over when life gets hard? And so I picked September to kind of be this theme about 5 years ago, because we're leaning in towards that season where there's a lot of expectations and a lot of extra demands, and we have to be steady. We have to know what sustains us. And so I started to think about the things that are important to me might be a universal thing, but they might not be. Each person's foundational walls or roots of the tree are going to be different. Maybe there's some overlap, maybe there's some similarities, but for the most of us, we better understand what keeps us steady, or when the storms do come and life turns us upside down, we better know what is the deepest part of ourselves that's going to keep us steady. So it's really, you can Google a list of attributes, characteristics, values, and you'll come up with a gazillion. But think about what in your life holds you together. For a lot of people, that's faith, having a faith in something outside of themselves, faith in themselves, faith in another person or another being, another thing. Faith is really important. And that's a great foundational wall, that no matter what shows up in your life, you have your faith. That can be super grounding for a lot of people. Determination is something that I hear a lot as I teach this topic to people of all abilities. Studio people that come into this space, people with brain injuries, people with dementia. Determination is something that kind of keeps them on the right way of being, in the right path, no matter what's showing up, to be determined. Family, for a lot of people, is another one of those walls or roots of the tree that just grounds us, that steadies us. It's not for everybody. Not everybody has that family component where you can lean on your family support to to endure a storm. Not everybody has that. If you do, that's great. That might be one of your four. I do believe we should have four, just like we have four foundational walls. I read somewhere years ago that a giant mature tree has four main roots and then lots of little roots. So I kind of came up with this idea that we should have four values or characteristics or ways of being that keep us grounded, right? Integrity is a huge one for me, and accountability. So they kind of, dovetail. Accountability in my integrity. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. You can count on me. I have integrity as far as my business. I tell the truth in my business. If I need to take a day off, I don't make something up. I have integrity to just say I need to take a day off. Never happens, but integrity is big for me. Productivity is a big one. And so faith is important to me. Being alone is really important to me. It grounds me. A connection to nature, a connection to the silence in my life grounds me. So connectiveness, having a belief is really important to me. We talked about that many podcasts ago. It's one of my top strengths is belief. That integrity, kind of responsibility, accountability, just having that as one of my four walls. So then here, what do we do with that? Here's the thing. We can list, oh, faith is important to me. But yet, all right, so faith is important to me. Responsibility. I'll just use myself as an example. Accountability. Taking care of myself. Self-care is really important to me. It grounds me. And I was once not a practitioner of self-care, and I was spiraling out of control most days. Now that is something that I incorporate on a daily basis. It's super important to me. It's what keeps me from falling over when there's a storm. So if I say to you, my people, self-care is one of my four walls or one of my four roots. And accountability is one of my roots. And believing in myself, believing in something greater than myself, super important to me. If I were to say those things and then my actions didn't align with those, I'd probably be full of BS. And then I would have nothing to keep me steady. And so saying what is important to us and what sustains us is just the first part. Then we have to make sure that our actions are in alignment with that. Are our actions aligned? So if integrity is really important to me, accountability, responsibility, something in that category, and yet I blow off people, I blow off my business, I blow off things I say I'm going to do, I tell somebody I'll do something and I don't do it, that is not aligned with what I'm claiming to be important to me. Belief in myself and belief in something greater than myself, if I don't connect with myself and I doubt myself and I tell myself, you're an idiot, you're a loser, you're never going to be something, that's not in alignment. And so therefore, I've got some serious cracks in my foundation. I've got serious trouble, because when life shows up, and it does for all of us, I'm not going to have that grounded, rooted, stable foundation in which the rest of my life is based upon. So I like to think about our alignment. First step is figuring out what it is that steadies you. What is so important to you? 4 things. And then really look at, if faith is important to you, do you question God? Do you question why things happen? Do you not practice a dedicated prayer practice or devotional time? You're probably out of alignment. It's nice to say faith is important, but how are you making sure that that wall is strong and not rotting? Because if one of the walls of your foundation in your home has some cracks in it and it starts crumbling and water gets in and it starts molding and the concrete starts to fall away, that is not going to keep your house steady when life shows up. So the same applies to us. If we say faith is important to us And yet we question everything. We feel victimized by the way life unfolds. Why did this happen to me? Oh, this is terrible. Or why would God allow this? Then we're out of alignment. If being healthy is one of your four walls, it's super important to me. And yet your choices and your actions and your thoughts are not aligned with health, probably not going to sustain you. Right. So I say self care is so important to me. If I don't do something for myself every day or every other day, and I'm not talking like spa days, I'm talking about simple ways to care for the self. If I neglect myself, if I don't eat, if I don't sleep, if I don't spend time in nature, if I don't do the things that I know are good for me, then I'm just blowing smoke by saying self care is so important to me. So for the month of September, this is sort of the pause. It's sort of like a bridge. We've had summer fun. Maybe you've had a vacation. Maybe you've traveled across the world. Maybe you've been busy going to outdoor concerts and life has been fun. Now it's time to hone in. We're about to change a season. We're about to move into the next quarter of the year, right? We're in that final phase of the year where maybe your goals are starting to close in on you. Now is sort of a time in September, I feel, where we kind of step back and say, okay, what is so important to me? Because going into the next few months, I'm going to need to know what is most important to me to make sure that I can show up for myself and for others, make sure that I can stay grounded when the world is becoming twinkly and busy and shopping and money and transactions and expectations and all of it. How can I stay steady to myself, for myself? That's why I love this in September. So I encourage you to spend some time. We're just in the fresh part of September. Maybe Google a list of values. I can link one down below. I think it's important, my favorite list of values. And maybe something will pop up, like connection. You have to feel like connected to people. That's really important to you. Then you better make sure that you're finding opportunities to be with people. That's not really important to me. Maybe it's important to you. That's okay. This is your exercise. So what I would love for you to do is for the month of September, jot down on a piece of paper or in your phone 4 things that you feel are the most important aspects of your life that make up who you are. Think of them as foundational walls. Make sure that you've got the nails in there, that they are solid. If you love the imagery of a tree, picture this beautiful tree that represents you and all of your beauty. And deep into the ground are the 4 things that keep that tree beautiful, thriving, growing, sustaining when life gets hard. Do that exercise. Stick with me as we go through this month because we're going to circle back to it come October. I've got a few other topics that I want to pop into the podcast, and I have 2 people with brain injuries that I will be interviewing coming up shortly, and then by the end of the year for sure, hopefully by Thanksgiving. So stay watching, but then keep looking at those 4 things and keep pondering, how are those 4 things showing up? How are you supporting those 4 things? How are you making sure the roots aren't rotting? Because if we say something and then we forget about it and we act in the complete opposite way, that root is going to rot. Then your tree is not going to have the stability it needs when life shows up, and you won't make it. So your homework is to figure out your 4 things. Think about them, talk about them, become them. And then coming up in October, we're going to circle back to this. We're going to talk about alignment. Stay with me. It's good stuff. All right. I'll see you next week. Got a great topic coming up next week. So I'll see you next week on this here podcast. And if you have any questions, just comment below and I'll get right back to you, or shoot me a message, or however you want to contact me. That would be great. And I will list 100 values list down below. And I can't wait to learn some of your values. All right. I'll see you next week. Bye.